Finally, I'm going to read a piece from Problems of Translation, my novel published in 2015. For those unfamiliar with Problems, the protagonist, Charles Abel Baker, a mostly unknown writer of advanced middle age, is seized by a desire to see one of his short stories translated successively into 10 different languages, then back into English, a sort of literary version of the parlor game Telephone. Unsuccessful at getting a publisher to back his gambit, Charles decides to accomplish his goal himself and to accompany his story around the world. Along the way, he has lots of adventures, some funny, some romantic, some hair-raising. You'll judge for yourself which category or categories the following passage falls into. I've read this before, I think it's been a few years, but I also chose it because it happens to be Jill's favorite. One of her favorites, she says, but I think it's really her favorite. Our hero is recently arrived in Russia, the first stop on his round-the-world pilgrimage. This is from chapter 4 of Problems, which is titled, Begging the Bear, Think Russia. Begging the Bear to Talk. As he was slipping off his shoes for a nap, the phone rang. So soon? Certainly no problem with the internet over here. Tak, Russian history professor, came a woman's voice. No trouble finding your hotel. My God, Svetlana? They'd met and flirted on the plane, but he'd never really expected to see her again. A statuesque blonde in her early 40s, she'd worn her turquoise Aeroflot cap like a tiara. She was royalty, he'd thought, an empress of the air. And what was he? A fit but slightly over-the-hill history professor and small-time writer, with a smallish tummy unless he sucked it in. She was Guinevere, and he certainly no Lancelot. Yet he was so smitten on the plane, he'd had a hard time stumbling through his stiff-spined, half-remembered Russian, beginning with a trusted old sentence that described himself as having once been a Russian history professor. Somehow she apparently found his shaky declensions charming. When she learned he was a writer, even more so. She, he'd discovered, had once studied world literature at a university in Siberia, then become a stewardess. Though her English was heavily accented, it was miles ahead of his Russian. Charles wasn't even sure she'd understood why he was traveling to Russia, despite his attempts to explain. Nor did it matter, he figured, since he'd surely never see her again. He'd assumed she was only being polite when she'd asked which hotel. What a surprise! No, my driver had no trouble getting me here. He just drove in a straight line all the way from the airport, ignoring streets, stoplights, and even other cars. Typical. Which way he took you? Had my eyes closed most of the time. I did peek through my fingers at the Moscow River every once in a while. She laughed. The long way. But never mind. I was hoping you might like some company. You would like a visit? Although she couldn't see it, Charles' eyebrows had lifted off like a Saturn rocket. What was she proposing? Should he be flattered or wary? A visit from you? Who are you expecting, Maria Sharapova? Of course, me. Well, I would of course love a visit from you. My goodness, I'm just so surprised. Silly man. You flirt with me on plane and now you act surprised. Shall I come over now? Are you far away? She giggled. Same hotel? 15 minutes. It was closer to 25, but worth the wait. When he opened the door, she was leaning against the door jamb, one hand behind her back. Veronica Lake in an old Humphrey Bogart film. Except that her blonde hair was swept up and fixed in place by, was that a small paintbrush? Or a tool for applying cosmetics? Odd, in any case. She wore no uniform now, however, sporting a black miniskirt and a gold lame blouse with pearls at her throat. All she needed was a rose between her gleaming white teeth. He'd noticed she was tall, but never guessed how much was due to her long legs. She reacted to his surprised expression. I know, it's very 60s. Your 60s, not ours. In our 60s, I was a little girl. But I like retro. You know Screaming Mimis in New York? I also have satin frock with taffeta petticoat from 50s. Like musical Oklahoma. You prefer? Hey, no, please, don't change a thing. You look wonderful. He stepped back. Your wardrobe certainly beats mine, he added, reaching for a neutral small talk. Right now I have only a change of shirts, some underwear, and 2 pairs of socks. Oh, and a second tie. Then we must get you out of that suit as soon as possible. Hang it up in bathroom with steam. You agree? She swept forth her hidden arm, revealing a bottle of Stolichnaya. Shall I pour us a glass? She was inside the room, but unable to tear his eyes from her. He'd still not managed to close the door. He did so now, watching as she disappeared into the bathroom and returned with 2 water glasses. Svetlana, this is all very lovely, but I'm afraid I don't drink anymore. I used to, but is so? She asked, placing the vodka and glasses on a bedside table with exaggerated care and seating herself primly on the bed. In that case, we skip vodka altogether. I don't need warm-ups. It's more time to make love. You are agreeable? In New York, Charles lived alone and had not shared his apartment or bed with anyone for some time now. Wow. Are you sure? This is so unexpected. The hum in his head that had begun when he'd first caught sight of her in the Aeroflot aisle had returned, only twice as loud. You do not wish? You are married, perhaps? Нет, nothing like that. Я не могу. I just can't believe my luck. Oh, please. I am the lucky one. I study literature in school, but you know how many writers I have met on my travels? Никого. I love history, but how many historians you think I meet up in air? Никого. Now I meet both in one big, strong man. I also love buried treasure. Why should I not want to get acquainted? Perhaps you do not find me attractive. He laughed softly, looked down a moment, then crossed the intervening distance and sank to the carpet in front of her. Okay, fine. Through her eyes, he was happy to be historian, writer, strong man, and a piece of buried treasure waiting to be dug up after 1,000 years spent below ground. He no longer felt old, only grateful. Yes, I find you attractive, he said. His voice gathered force. Honestly, you make my head spin. Нет, my goodness. When young, maybe I turn heads, but I'm old lady in my 40s now. Thank you for saying, however. You are not only professor, you are romantic, is true? Or maybe just good writer. He took her hands, kissing first one, then the other. Her long legs were thrillingly close. Thank you. As an American minister might intone to his congregation, for the bounty we are about to receive, we thank you. She smiled. Silly man. That's it. Thank you.